Chapter 5, and what we're going to do today is that hopefully it's going to feel a little bit like Algebra 1 review, okay? So we're going to talk about polynomials. We're going to do a little vocab at the beginning. You actually did this vocab in Algebra 1. If you had me, we did the table that's almost identical to this that you're going to see. So first thing, so a definition, a monomial is an expression that's either a real number, or it's a variable, or it's a product of real numbers and variables with whole number exponents, meaning the number 2 is a monomial. 3y is a monomial. Negative 5x squared y is a monomial, and so on. Those are examples of mono meaning one, like a single term. Okay? The exponent of the variable of a term determines the degree of that term. And I'm going to circle the words exponent of the variable. That is key. So the exponent of the variable, the largest one, will determine the degree of the polynomial. A polynomial. Do you know what poly means? What? Yep, multiple, more than one, many. So a polynomial, it would be if I have a monomial or the sum of monomials, meaning I could take these monomials up here and I could put plus and minus signs between them, and now I have 3 monomials, which is an example of a polynomial. Okay? And you have to write your answers in descending order by degree, which we call that standard form. Okay, so for example, if I gave you 2 plus 3x minus 5x squared, if I were going to put that in standard form, I would put my x squared first. So I'd have negative 5x squared, my 3x would come next, and my constant would come last. And that's not new to you. Most of you already do that, put it in standard form. Okay, and then lastly, this is what I just set up above. The degree of the polynomial is the largest, it's going to be the largest exponent on a single term. Okay? So we're going to, on this table, look at some vocabulary here. Okay? So we're going to start with naming by degree, and these are going to be words you're going to want to memorize. Okay? So let's start with this one. If it's a degree of 0, that means on the variable, there's an exponent of 0. So what do you notice right here? What is missing on the number 8? What is not there? A variable. So if there is no variable, it has a degree of 0. And what do you call a number that doesn't have a variable attached? A constant. Good. And how many terms do I have right there? 1 term. And so when I name it by the number of terms, that's always the ending omial, and then the beginning is going to be based off of what goes with a 1, a 2, 3, or so on. So what's a single term called? Monomial. Good. Okay, so the next example, I have 2x minus 1. That's a degree of 1 because there's an exponent of 1 right there on the x, right? We don't have to write it, but we know it exists. Do we know what that would be called? Think about what it would look like on a graph. 2x minus 1. If I graphed that, what would it look like? It would look like a line. So what do you call a function that will be graphed as a line? Linear. And how many terms do I have there? 2 terms. So what will you call that one? Bi. 2 is bi. Binomial. Good. right, the next one. The degree is a 2, right? What did you call that? That's the chapter we just came out of. So when you graph them, it's a parabola, but what's the function called? It starts with this muscle. Quadratic, nice. Now, this speaks to how much you guys have grown and learned as juniors, because when I say that to freshmen, they say ham something, like this is their hamstring. And I'm like, it's not. It's not. So maybe you guys have had anatomy. So good job. Okay. How many terms do I have? One term. What do you call it when it's one term? Monomial. All right, degree on the next one is a 3, right? It's just the largest exponent on the variable. Anybody have a guess? Or do you remember it from algebra 1? Degree of 3. What is it? Cubic. Nice. Cubic is correct. And how many terms does this one have? 3 terms. You remember that one? Trinomial. Good. Now, the next 2 for degree you may not know, because in Algebra 1 we let you say 4th degree, 5th degree, and so on. We're not going to say that. We're going to use the word. So the next one has a degree of 4, right? Greatest exponent is 4. Anybody have a guess? It ends in ick. Let me start with that. And then think of prefixes that could represent 4. Close. Not quad. A 4-person singing group is called a, that's 5. What's a 4-person? For real people. Yes, a quartet. So what do you think this is? How would you say it? What? Quartic. Nice. Very good. This is like, what's like the game show where you're trying to get them to guess? Oh my gosh, you guys won't even know. It's like old for me. Like I'm like too young for it, so you're definitely not. But like $1,000 pyramid or whatever, 100,000. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay. Well, it's okay. All right, how many terms? 2. We call that binomial. All right, last one. We're going to use Ethan called a 5-person singing group. So what do you think this one is? What? Quintic. Good. All right, how many terms does the last one have? 4 terms. So when you get to 4 or more, you're going to use that prefix poly. So this is polynomial. Okay? So these are the words you need to memorize. 0 through 5 for degree, and then 1 through 4 or more. So 4 or more will always be poly for number or naming by terms. Okay, so from here, we're going to do a couple examples that you'll do in your homework where we're going to put it in standard form, and then you're going to name it for me by degree and by term number. Okay, so let's start with this one. Let's put it in standard form. Can somebody tell me what this should look like in standard form? Jacob. Good. X cubed plus 9. Okay, now we're going to classify it by degree, and I'm going to put a D just so we know exactly what we're doing here. What is the degree of this one? What is it? Cubic. How do you know? Yes, it's to the power of 3. So the degree on this one is 3. And then how many terms does this one have? 2. So we call that binomial. Very good. All right, let's move to the second one. Who can put this one in standard form for me? In descending Ascending order. Somebody new. Good. Make sure you pay attention to your signs when you rewrite this in standard form. All right. What is the degree? Don't tell me the name yet. What's the degree of this one? A degree of 4. What do you call that? Quartic. How many terms does this one have? 3. What do we call that? Trinomial. Okay? Anybody have a question there? Let me just say, yeah. No, I just did that so you guys had a reference. When you do your homework, you're going to want to keep this table out so that you are paying attention to your vocab because you may not have it memorized yet. So use this as a reference. All right, so the last piece of the polynomials is today we're going to hit addition, subtraction, and multiplication. Okay, we're going to do division completely separate. So on the back, example 2, this first example here, some of you will see parentheses and you'll automatically multiply. So make sure you pay attention. Notice that there's a plus sign in between. And then the thing you have to remember is I can only add and subtract things that are like terms. So let's start with x squared. Is there anything that I can add with my x squared over here? No, so I'm just going to bring it down. Okay, then I'm going to go to my negative 3x. Is there anything to add to my negative 3x? What? 4x. So what is negative 3 plus 4x? 1x. And you can either write 1x or you can just write x. Anything to add to my constant 1? And you get 6. And there's nothing else to do because none of those are alike. And so we're done. Okay? Now, the second one. This time, what operation are we doing? Subtraction. And what do you have to do if you are subtracting off more than one thing? To the right. Yes, distribute. So you have to remember, take your subtraction sign because I'm subtracting off all 3 of those. So then I'm going to rewrite that. So that's a negative 3x squared, a positive x, and a positive 1. And then I'm just going to bring down the front. 3x squared plus 7x. And now I'm ready to combine like terms. So 3x squared, I can combine with negative 3x squared. What does that give you? 0. Do you write 0x squared? No, you don't write anything. They just cancel out. What can I combine with 7x? Yep, a 1x, which gives me 8x. Is there anything to combine with my constant? Nope, so you just bring it down. And I cannot add those together because they are not alike. Okay? Anything there? All right, here's the next one. Okay, this time we're doing multiplication, okay? So we're going to multiply this through. So remember, when you do that, you multiply your coefficients. So 2 times 1 is a 2, right? And then let's make sure we remember properties of exponents. What is x squared times x squared? X to the 4th. What do you do with your exponents when you multiply powers with the same base? You add them. Good. So the 2 and 2 would get added. Now I'm going to go here. So 2x squared times 5x. So the 2 times 5 would give me 10. What's x squared times x? X cubed. And then lastly, 2x squared times negative 1, negative 2x squared. Can any of those be added or subtracted? You're saying no. Why not, Evan? Very good. So if the powers do not match, they are not alike. You're done. It doesn't matter that they all have x's. The powers, so those exponents, have to be the same. Okay? All right, then the last thing you're going to be asked to do, so this time, up to this point, you've done like a binomial times a binomial, and you foiled it. So now we're taking a trinomial times a binomial. Same idea. You got to make sure you hit everything. So I always start with the one that has the smaller or the least amount of terms. So I'm going to start with the binomial, and I'm going to take this x, and I'm going to multiply it in to all three of these. Okay? So that's how we're going to start. Now, you don't have to follow that. If you want to go left to right, you're welcome to do that. So what is x times 3x squared? What is it? 3x cubed, okay? And then what is x times, notice that's a negative 2x. What's x times negative 2x? Negative 2x squared. And then I'm taking x times 1, which is just x, right? Then after I do that, now I'm going to take, that's a negative 4. I'm going to take it into all three. So what's negative 4 times 3x squared? Negative 12x squared. And then I'm going to take negative 4 times negative 2x. So negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8, and then x. And then negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Am I done there? I am not. So what can I do? X squareds can be combined, okay? What do you get when you combine those? Negative 14x squared. Anything else I can do? Positive x and positive 8x. What does that give me? 9x. Notice I'm writing this in standard form, right? I'm going in order. And then I can bring down the rest that don't have anything to add to it. And there's my final answer. None of those can be combined because they don't have the same degrees, so they're not alike. Okay? Do I have any questions about that? Okay, so your homework is a Canvas assignment. Let me just say this. I put it on the directions, but just to clarify, you get one shot for this assignment, so you may not do it twice. So keep your notes out so that you can follow specifically the vocab. And I believe it's maybe 9-ish, 8, 9 questions, so you should have time to get that completely done. When you finish that, you are welcome to work on another class if you have anything. Again, if you have questions, raise your hand and I will come around. Okay? Okay.